interesting how you can be amused by the same simple little jokes, even if they're personal to yourself only. The fact that when as I start this streaming, it says, "You're live. You're live." It's it's entertaining to me. Hey, thank you for being here. Thank you for being here. My name is aLex Levin. That's Rocky 2 behind me. Rocky 2 as in not the sequel to Rocky 2, but Rocky 2 as in Lao Tzu or Shih Tzu. Minnie Mooch, my kitty cat, is right over there. It's nice to be surrounded by my animals. This is a weekly session, about 30 minutes of movement and meditation. And this is sponsored or part of Sun and Moon Yoga Studios community online and live these days. Today's topic is to do with dog training. I'm a new dog owner. I have had another dog. Oh, by the way, go ahead and let's do some setup things. After a little introduction, I will be we'll do a slight movement together on the theme of today's practice, the dog training theme. And if you're here, it really helps me to know that you're on the other side by the chat. I can't see you like in a Zoom call, but a chat in this space would be great. Thank you. And whenever you're joining me, welcome, welcome, welcome. You might just set up your space so that you're very comfortable where you're sitting. I'm sitting on a fairly hard floor. For the movement part, just have enough, you will be sitting, you could do it in a chair, sitting on a chair, or even on a couch. The little movement we'll be doing will be in sitting position. It could be from lying down if you prefer, with your knees bent lying down, so that's an option as well. So just make yourself comfortable with what padding you need and what warmth or coolness you need to join me in the meditation and movement and meditation. So, new dog owner. The last rescue dog I had, the first dog I owned, was an older, small Yorkie poo who he was all of 7 or 8 pounds, didn't really need training or not. Well, there was no training going on with that dog, and we had him a couple years. This dog, Rocky 2, we got him a few months ago, and he's about 2 years old. And as a rescue dog, you don't really know so much about what their past was. He was not terribly good on the leash, so we had to learn, but he learned really, really quickly. Many dogs aim to please, and with treats, they can be easily trained, especially as they're younger, and with the bonding that happens there. So he's come a long way, and he does things like many dogs do. As he's come to accept us as his family, he barks a lot if somebody comes to the door and runs at them barking and sometimes even growling. So we're working on that. And some of the commands that are really useful, and I'm a novice at this and just sort of so far learning through TikTok and YouTube videos and friends' suggestions. One of the very useful commands is leave it for us. So when we're walking, a little tug on the leash and a treat on the other side really helps the leave it. Another one is stay. Oh, wait, I'll come back to stay. Come. Come was an important one for being on the leash, especially as we're on a retractable leash. And just to have him, come when he needs to be taken, come when called. So come was an important one. He's gotten attached to me, as I'm with him much of the time, and in order to be able to leave him without separation anxiety, I've learned that using the stay command and practicing it frequently, so he's probably hearing me here. So even in the house, just starting to reward him for going into the other room and he stays where he is, come back and give him the treat. So that command in particular, the stay, and many of these commands have application or some metaphorical value to our practices. Stay is quite obvious, or sit, often precluded by precluded preceded by sit. And so that's been a very good one. But then it could be by sit or lay down. Hope it's not confusing him to hear all these. He heard me on the phone getting angry at a mechanized voice of the menu tree saying "no" quite loud. And he started slinking away as if he had done something wrong. So they really, really understand. I assured him it wasn't him, and then calmed down on the phone. So, so our sit, we come to sit in this practice. Even as we're going to go into a movement, we're going to start from a sitting position or lying down, but it's to come to that place, that asana. And so let's go ahead and delve into the movement wherever you are, and just do ensure you're comfortable, but you don't need to shift or fidget or fix your posture. Find the ground beneath you. A great first place to start, finding that ground, finding what supports you. Some of that is the ground, some of that I'm going to tuck a cushion underneath my knee. And so we just come to this moment of stillness by drawing our attention to where we are right now, the position of our body as we sit. The dog commands often have hand gestures associated with them. Actually, ours for sit is a upward movement of the hand. And once we get to that still place of observing our body and not needing to fix it, from the yoga training, you might be thinking, oh, I'm supposed to sit, have my spine long and be in a certain orientation to gravity. In this way that I teach, let that go. Just sit comfortably. Or if you're laying down, that's fine. Be laying down. And noticing support has my attention is drawn to a vertical element, and then ours also a horizontal. So underneath us, below the body, even if it's lying down, is the ground. So that's that vertical one, our body on top of the earth, in that vertical dimension. And then if we are sitting, we can notice that central channel of the spine. We can also notice the space around us to the horizontal dimension. So things on the side and the organs on the front of the spine, the hip axis girdle, the shoulder girdle, those two horizontal axes support the body inside. The space around us to the front and back and sides. The second step is really useful to notice the breath. These don't necessarily have to be in this order in my playbook, but playbook, that's been a term that's used a lot in the Russia-Ukraine conflict going on. Putin's playbook. So that's in the psychosphere, right? In that thought that jumped for me. But nonetheless, I can sense ground. I can sense the breath. And thirdly, the code word I use is space around. It's from the Embodied Life Training. Space around. And I hinted at that with the horizontal dimension. But for me, it includes that connection, knowing as I'm gesturing with my arms out to the sides. It includes the inside sensations, all the felt senses that are happening. It includes thoughts that might seem to arise in here or out there. Sounds. So actually, the code word for this is often sound, but the sound space around. So the three elements here are ground, breath, sound / space around. And then in all of this, that term I just used, felt sensing, is this tuning in this quieter, slower, subtler way to what is happening. Now take your attention to the lower belly, what I call the golden ball, below the navel. I've got one hand on the front, one on the back. And just begin to, as if from deep inside in that golden ball that's just above the pelvic floor, below the navel level, not the upper belly that's like closer to the ribs and diaphragm muscle, but lower. And just imagine that golden ball rolls back a little bit. Tiny bit is enough. Pelvis tilts back. Pause. You're breathing comfortably, and then it comes back to neutral or where you began. And let's just tilt back, and instead of going all the way to a forward tilt, let's roll the ball back again. And so notice the difference, the distinction when I have you, maybe you can sense if I ask you to roll the pelvis back and then back to neutral with pauses at both ends of that movement. And what is it any different if I say roll the golden ball that's deeper inside? And just the imagery, the gold, the smoothness of a ball is different from the shapes of the pelvis. Are they different? And so we tilt back, pause. The hands could still be in place, or you might remove them, come back into place, pause. So the rollover command is like a movement. Back to center, roll over and come back up. And as you're ready, let that go and just come back to the stillness of sensing ourself on this ground, within the space around, within the sound, where sound travels. Sensing our breath, which might be very, very shallow. Could be. As we get quieter, it can tend to do that. And then, and feel free to change the position of your legs if you like. I'm going to take my knee that's wonky and just straighten that leg and support it underneath. If you do shift, take a moment or a few moments to just notice how the whole has shifted as you shift a little bit of the part. One little part affects the whole. And now, if you like, you can bring the hands to the belly again, the lower belly, one in the front, one in the back. And in fact, And now let's roll that golden ball forward a little as if from inside. Pause and then roll it back to where the beginning, where we started from roughly. Rolling it forward a little and noticing what happens in the entire body, or anywhere in the body, nearby places like the sits bones, that you feel a shift. And so we're incorporating this discipline or this practice of stay as we roll and pause. There's a little stay there. And pause. And if we happen to get distracted, like by a thought related to a word or anything, we just come back, just like a leave it. Right, Rocky, leave it. Okay, and without missing a beat, or you could pause, we can start to go back, roll the golden ball back. I'm going to release my hands from that position. Come back through center, forward. And we might notice as we now take this, I'm not taking this without the pauses, just rolling back, roll the golden ball back. Roll forward through center and to the front. You might even notice things like the right and left side of this rolling on your pelvis. Maybe accentuated for me as one leg is extended out and one is bent. And then just stop somewhere, anywhere in that continuum of that rolling forward and back, and simply pause. Stay. Notice what you notice. I hope you're hearing me well enough. I forgot to put in there's a distraction. I forgot to put in my earbuds today. It's pretty quiet here. One more time before we sit for our meditation. Let's take the same action, and whatever way if you haven't already started yet, whatever way you have an impulse to start, see if you can catch that and go in the opposite way. If your impulse is to start with the forward roll, could you have caught yourself? Just notice that, and then start with the backward roll of the golden ball. And then pause as you go back. I'm invoking the pause again. Roll the golden ball forward. Or maybe your impulse was to go back, so you started with the forward. Just slow pause at each end of the movement, the forward end and the backward end. You may even notice things up the spine, up into the upper chest lung area, up into the jaw, the eyes and head. All parts are connected, and how we, with practice over and over, come back to observing these small, slow movements. We notice more and more and more and more of the intricate connections and webs, patterns and habits. Pretty effortlessly, not needing to make huge, effortful, but rather looking for the ease and joy of it. I should have led with that. Important in learning, even with our dogs and when humans, is the fun element. All right, then leave it, leave that action and come back to An easy sitting place, or if you've been lying down, this is all available from lying down. Perhaps you've landed right here into your meditation spot. Or perhaps, and I've shifted over to my earbuds, perhaps you need to just make a little adjustment or a bigger adjustment into the meditation portion, which will be another about 8 minutes. Perhaps you need to be a little warmer. And so settle into that position, and it can be seated, lying down, sitting in a favorite armchair, sitting with your back against the wall behind you. Making the adjustments you need to set up the posture as well as you can to be just right for the duration. So now we're in the sit and stay. The preceding movements may have the effect of really bringing presence front and center. And so you may have a strong feel of presence here. Or if you don't and you feel distracted and you still feel not set up, we have a lot of tools like the ones I've introduced where we find ground, breath, space around, and you can focus on any of those. And in fact, let's just take the space around aspect of sound. As I shifted to the earbuds, as you hear that command of the sound, attending to sound. Makes me think of being out in a natural setting, in a non-urban, non-suburban, but in nature. And when we know there might be some animals present, or we're bird watching, or we thought we heard something, we get more quiet. We make ourselves available to the space around, to the unknown, to the source of sound. And then all the tools, all the pointers, all these practices are like a boat that takes us to the other shore. Once we get there, We can let go of the boat, but you can be in the boat or use the boat as long as you need. But we do have a tendency to hold on to the boat when what we could do is step out of it and let it go. Recognizing that we may be attached to the boat, we may have some separation anxiety from the boat. So thus we practice, but at some point we also get invited to go beyond our comfort zone in increments in a way that we feel safe. And so we start to trust into that presence, partly by having tasted it a lot, tasted it and come to feel that we can trust it. There can be a very untethered feel, a very scary feel. It can initially feel very wonderful, blissful if you get those tastes of that presence, oneness, that no self qualities. And that may last a while, and then we may bump up against that fear, that something too foreign, too cutting off of who we are, who we know ourselves to be, think ourselves to be. And we can get right back in that boat. We can be gentle with ourselves when we feel like, and we notice when we are aware that we bump up against scary territory and notice our reaction. As Eric Schiffman says, we can know that we have choices and options. Couple more moments. Letting yourself find, how could this be easeful and joyful? Letting yourself ask that question. So potently, the sound as we feel it come into us from out there. Where is it? Where is it? It all connects. Bring your palms together at the heart. And this gesture of ending our practice, bowing to each other, bowing our heads to our hands, to our hearts. And thank you for joining me in this practice. Sit, stay, leave it, roll over. Just not imperative to life in any way, but those of us that are drawn to it, we know that these tools help us to more and more live more fully, meet life in the most wise and loving ways. So again, thank you. Come back, check out all of Sun and Moon Yoga Studio's offerings on the website sunandmoonstudio.com. And I had last week quoted one of our newer teachers, Melissa Baker. I want to just give shout outs to try these teachers that you, a lot of times as we have a yoga practice with teachers, we get dedicated to our favorites, and that's great. But it's also, especially now with some of them available on Zoom as well, many still available online, it's a great opportunity to try different voices, different approaches, different persons' guidance out. So try that, and I highly encourage again to join in on Annie's. If you're interested in meditation, we've got Annie's Wednesday evening meditation on YouTube and live at the studio in Arlington, and Jackie's meditation on Friday mornings at 8 o'clock Eastern Time through Zoom. You have to go through the website, but it's by donation there. So, ciao, ciao.